Hey, this is Jack Endino, and you are listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter at NoShockPod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We would like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Jack Endino. He's sometimes referred to as the godfather of grunge, but one thing I learned about him, he's just so down to earth, such a cool guy.
Well, let's give him his credit that he deserves, the godfather of grunge.
He's got a new solo album, Set Myself on Fire.
Yep, he's also promoting the new Purple Strange.
Which he, last week we had Ron 9 on. They're both in there. Yep,
he's also promoting the band, which he's a part of, Cries Mary.
Yeah.
So it was a great interview. Get engaged and have a fun listen.
All right.
Good night. Jack, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce to you my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Jack, thanks for joining us tonight.
A pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me on your fine podcast. And I presume this isn't going out live.
No, it's not. We're a pre-recorded program here, so.
Ooh, editing.
Yeah, exactly. So
fine, okay.
We've been talking about this for weeks now, having you on the podcast. Yeah. We are so excited to have you. So, back in November of 2021, you released your first solo album in 15 years, Set Myself on Fire. Can you talk a bit more about the writing and recording process of this album?
Great album.
Writing and recording process, here's the thing, is I went through a phase starting around let's talk about the correct century. Around 2004, 2005, I got into a new phase in my life where I was back playing in bands again after just being a record producer for about a decade. Mm-hmm. And, I ended up in a band called Candy Coated, which was an interesting band. We had a famous snowboarder in the band, Jamie Lynn, and the rhythm section from that band was kick-ass, and we were sponsored by Volcom, which I had a really interesting time in that band playing at ski resorts. It was the damnedest thing for me to be doing because I was, considerably older than anyone else in the band, but I was having a really good time. And, and I started writing more songs, and, I wasn't the main songwriter in that band, but when that band broke up, I knew who to call to play my stuff. I said, you guys, the bassist and drummer, I said, you guys want to play some of my tunes now? And I'm going to put a band together. So I put a band together, and I was writing some songs. Meanwhile, I had some other stuff that I had recorded with my old buddy Barrett Martin in the studio. And there was a label here in Seattle called Finn Records that said, hey, we'll put out a record for you, new label, they're kind of big fans. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll put together this album for Finn Records and we'll call it Set Myself on Fire. And then, since that, it was the fact that I knew that record was going to come out that made me call these guys up and say, hey, I guess I have a record coming out. I need a band. You guys want to learn some of these tunes, and I'll write some more songs, and we'll call it Endino's Earthworm, which was the name of a band I had back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And Barrett Martin, also from the Screaming Trees and Skinyard, was in the Earthworm back in the 90s, so there's continuity here. So, but what happened is Finn Records went out of business. I ended up writing a bunch of new songs with the new guys, and then, at the end of almost a decade going by, I was sitting here in the middle of the pandemic going, God, the record never came out. I've got all these other songs. I've got to somehow, can I weld this all together and make a coherent listening experience out of it with these, different rhythm sections and songs from different times and so forth. And somehow by remixing everything all at the same time and sequencing it and mastering it, I made it into a coherent album. So it's basically just, there's what I did over the last decade. It's all on that record. So, the previous record was Permanent Fatal Error, which came out in 2006. Mm-hmm. And that record took me a decade to make. So, I'm not real productive on my own music because I'm busy making records with other people and playing in bands with other people. I have a really good time playing other people's music and contributing my parts to it, or helping out writing the bridge or whatever I'm doing. But my own stuff is a pretty big responsibility because I got to sing, I got to come up with the lyrics, I got to be the front person, and it's fun, but it takes me forever to write songs myself. And when I'm done with them, I'm always happy with them. But man, I am not quick. So, unfortunately, the Earthworm, I don't have that anymore. Our drummer passed away just right in the middle of COVID, and it wasn't COVID that took him, actually. It was something else, and that was unfortunate. Fortunately, Barrett Martin is still out there doing great stuff, and everybody else I'm in touch with. But I don't have a band right now, which is a pity, but I do have the album.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about the writing of some of the songs. You said it took about 10 years. There were a couple of instrumentals on that album, right? Well, there's instrumentals on all of my solo records. Okay.
This is my fourth solo record, and every one of them has got a couple of instrumentals on them. Just because sometimes I like writing instrumentals and doing interesting guitar bits instead of a vocal melody. And sometimes just, I never came up with words for it, so I just figure out some way to make it work instrumentally. And some of those are some of my favorite ones.
Yeah, me too.
So, here's the thing. I'm always recording at any given time. If I have some songs, I'll call up some people I know, whoever's around me, and say, hey, you want to go in the studio for a day? Let's bang out some drum tracks, and I'll have something to work on for a while. So it might take me 20 years to get around to finishing a song. So there is one song on this record that I recorded with Barrett Martin and Rob Skinner from Coffin Break in 1996.
Oh, wow. Cool.
That I never finished.
Oh, so
because
cool.
I had four different versions of this stupid song, and I couldn't decide which one to use. And I finally finished one, and I put it. It's called Groovy Suction, and it's a song that Skinyard used to play. And I finally finished it and put it on the new record. Waste Not, Want Not.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's probably the oldest song on the record as far as when it was recorded. And then a bunch of it was recorded with Barrett in 2010, and then most of it was recorded with the current Earthworm band around 2014, 2015, in that period. And then it was just a matter of, when am I going to come up with lyrics? Some of them had lyrics, some of them didn't.
Oh, very cool. So, yeah, you brought in many notable artists up for this album. Can you give our listeners an insight of who joined you for Set Myself on Fire?
Well, okay, so Barrett Martin, of course, who was Skinyard's, I think, fourth drummer. He's on our fourth and fifth albums, 1,000 Smiling Knuckles and Inside the Eye. That's Barrett Martin. When Skinyard broke up, he immediately joined the Screaming Trees and played with the Screaming Trees for pretty much the whole decade of the 90s, roughly, because Skinyard broke up essentially in January of 1992, right after Skinyard's last European tour. We came home, and that was it. And I got the phone call from Van Connor of the Screaming Trees a few weeks later, actually. He said, hey, we heard Skinyard might be breaking up, and we kind of need a drummer right now. And, well, I just wanted to make sure it was okay with you if we tried Barrett out, And I said, take him. He's yours.
Yeah, your drummers had quite the success, rate after leaving Skinny.
Well, it's true, and we'll talk about that because I was just in the studio with another of my ex-drummers quite recently, who's on the Third Secret album.
Yeah,
that's another story.
Yeah,
but the Skinyard drummers, I think we were like a school for drummers. I don't know how that worked out, but so Barrett's on the record on about half the songs. Couple different bass players. Rob Skinner from Coffin Break is on a song. My friend Alex Sebald, who used to be in The Accused, is on a song. Josh Cinder, who was in The Accused and also was in Tad's band in the middle 90s, and he was in Grunt Truck for a while. Oh. He's on a song. And the rest of it is my friend Johnny Graziadei. May he rest in peace. I miss him terribly. Mm-hmm. He's drumming on the main body of the stuff. All of the newer tunes, and my good buddy Sam McDonald, who was the bass player for Earthworm in the last decade too, and also Chris Johnson from Zeke plays second guitar on I think 3 or 4 of the tunes.
Oh, so cool!
So nice. It's just a smattering of local talent. I mean, it's a little scene here. We know each other.
Absolutely.
I saw it out on iTunes, but is there a physical product? Is there a place for fans to get it?
Yes, there's vinyl and there's CDs, and the label is called Capacitor Records out of New Jersey, and there's Bandcamp as well, and it's on all the download and streaming sites. But yeah, there's physical product. We actually went for it. There's a lovely vinyl version. There's even some red vinyl copies, and I think Burnside Distribution has got it as far as I know. Maybe somebody else does. Or you can get it directly from capacitorrecords.com.
Oh, very good, very good.
Yeah, there you go. I've about promoted it about as much as I can. And, but I'm happy with it. I can listen to it and not flinch. I think my singing is pretty good, and Now it's on to other things. I'm in like 3 other bands right now with other people who are all like doing stuff. So time to do other music.
I'm just gonna kind of key off of what we talked about pre podcast, but Ron 9 was very appreciative of you as a player, and said that a lot of people don't realize how great of a player you are. So you play guitars, you sing, you play drums. How's that all work for you with all the different instruments?
Well, singing was the last thing that came to me, actually. It was only once I really, here's the thing, I've been singing on my solo records for like 20 years, but, until I actually had the band Earthworm, and we played lots of shows around 2011, 2012, 2014. We played a lot of goddamn shows. And that's what, you get good by doing it, and I finally got confident with not looking at my guitar while I was being the front person of the band. You got to look at the audience. You got to sing into the mic. You can't be looking at your guitar all the time. So it sort of informs your guitar playing and your songwriting, because of course you've got to structure the songs. So the simple parts are the parts where you're singing. You sing on the parts where you're just doing the bar chords, and then the noodly part is between the words, between the lines, So it straightened my songwriting out considerably by making myself sing on the straightforward parts of the music. It was a good songwriting exercise, learning how to do the whole thing. And, it all reflects back into my production as well, because, I started as a drummer long ago. And then I switched to bass player for a while, and then Skinyard in 1985 was the first band in which I was, the guitar player.
Yeah.
So as I've been, a recording engineer all this time, I still remember how, I know what the players are dealing with. I can look at the drum set and go, oh, the bottom snare head is tuned a little too slack right now. Let me tune it up. Because I went through all that with my own stuff, because I was learning how to record by recording myself. So I was my own guinea pig, really. Back in the day in my basement, I had a drum set, I had all the amps and everything. I would record my own demos, and I'd be like, how can I, what do I need to do? And then when I started recording other people, I had already done a lot of the trial and error. So doing this stuff, I'm kind of sensitive to singers and making sure they have the right headphone mix and the right microphone and the right brand brand of headphones, and do they need speakers instead of headphones? What's going to help them sing in tune? This is the thing of being a record producer. If you're also a musician and a performer, you have a tremendous advantage. Because you're basically, your mind is on both sides of the glass the whole time. And that's worked for me the whole time. And that's why I stay active playing in bands and making records of my own and with other bands that I'm in, the whole time. It sort of feeds back into my knowledge about how to produce and how to record.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's go a different direction here. Cries Mary recently released their new album, Wandering in the Vastness, on Trail Records. You played guitar on this album. Can you talk a little bit?
I did play guitar.
Yeah.
And I actually played drums on the second song.
Whoa, that's
the second
new.
song. I am not playing guitar on the second song on the record, but I am playing drums.
All right.
And, which is funny. I did that on the previous Cries record too. There's one song I'm playing drums on.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, can you talk a little bit more about working with the members of this band, and how did this all come to fruition for you?
Well, there's two Cries Mary records that have come out in the last 2 years since I joined the band a few years ago. Now, this is the interesting thing: is I'm a guitar player in the band. The other guitar player is Kevin Whitworth, who also is in Love Battery.
Exactly. Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm in the band Purple Strange with Ron Mine, who is the other guitarist from Love Battery. So I'm in two different bands with either of the guitar players from Love Battery, which is just a weird coincidence in my life right now. And they're both genius players.
Yeah.
So Kevin and I joined Cries Mary a few years ago, and the first record we made with them was kind of songs. And then the second record we made with them, which came out March 2020, What Could Go Wrong? Yeah. The record was called, I can't remember the name of the record right now. Secrets of a Red Planet. Came out literally the month that the lockdown started. So that was kind of in a way, it was kind of a lost record. But we made that record. We spent 2 days. We had a session in the studio here where we basically went in. We did it like krautrock style. We went in and we jammed for 2 days, improvising, and I recorded everything. And then it was the editing and the overdubbing and the editing, and we basically crafted an album based on these improv jams that we had started with. And it was a really interesting way to work because, Roderick, he's got books of lyrics. He's like, I know exactly the lyric that would fit on this, and so it would come up and suddenly it would turn into a song. So, but the new record, Wandering in the Vastness, this was a product of the lockdowns because basically we made an album without any of us all being in the same room for 2 years.
Yeah. Which,
you probably imagine a lot of people have done that, but
yes.
This is the thing. Everybody in the band has got home recording capability. So, except Roderick, who's living in New York, but he had a studio there, and he would go into, we'd send him instrumentals, and he would send us back the vocal tracks. But Kevin was doing stuff on his own at his home studio, and Kurt, the bass player, was doing stuff in his own little studio. I, of course, have got Soundhouse here in Seattle. Ben Ireland, the drummer, he's actually kind of a keyboard whiz, and he's got this massive setup of all these synthesizers and electronics and stuff in his living room. So, once it was like, we're going to make a record, and, so what if we can't get together and play? Damn it, we're going to do this. Then it was on, and we just started sending tracks back and forth, and, somebody would like one, and then it would be like, wait, let's put a vocal on this. Oh, I know a guitar part. So, and then, of course, I was the guy who had to pull it all together at the end of it because I'm the guy with the technical chops, so I had to, it's like, okay, here's some tracks from Logic and here's some from GarageBand, and I'm working in Pro Tools, and, so, and it was interesting, but the result is it's kind of a surprising record. I'm very happy with it. I think we all are.
Absolutely. I guess the question I have about Cries Mary, do you view this as a long-term band, or do you view this as a project? And and if so, how do you view yourself within this band? Are you a full member, or are you a hired gun? How does this all work?
I'm a full member as far as that goes. The current lineup is the current lineup. I'm probably not the most musically creative member in terms of, I don't think I'm contributing as much to the songwriting as some of the others are, but, playing-wise, I get my 2 cents worth in, and I definitely am the one who ends up kind of de facto producing it, even though it's definitely kind of a collaborative thing. I'm not calling the final shots on anything, but I'm definitely the one pulling it together and making it into a record. I'm doing what I usually do. It's actually the third album that I've actually appeared on with Sky Cries, and so
cool.
The thing is, at this point, live shows are still sort of a question mark. They're starting to happen again, so I don't know the long-term status of the band. I think we'll probably continue. It will probably continue being a recording band, even if it is not a live band. But I know Roderick would like to play some shows. It's just we have like 2 albums worth of material that has never actually been played live.
Yeah.
What the hell are we going to play?
Yeah.
So, and if we get together and start rehearsing, I know what's going to happen. We're just going to start writing new songs.
Hey, even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly. And then we'll be off writing, we're making another record. So, I like making records, and I like making records more than I like playing live at this point. And I don't think I'm the only one.
Oh, very good. Jeff, you got the next one?
Oh, we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked briefly about Purple Strange, and so I just wanted to bring that one back. So you're in the band with Ron Nine, both playing guitar and backing vocals, and you got a new singer, Stroud. Is that what you?
Jared Stroud is his name. Yes, yeah. Mr. Stroud. We call him Stroud.
Yeah, talk a little bit about how that project came to be.
Well, this came about. A drummer who we call Vern, Matt Vandenberg, we call him Vern. It's a long story. He's friends with Mr. Stroud, as was I, and Mr. Stroud had some songs, and he wanted to record some of them. And he's not an ace player, but he's a guy. He can pick up a guitar and bang out the chord changes, and he can sing, and he can come up with lyrics. And he basically had these demos that, just him playing into his cell phone, basically, where the changes were there, the lyrics were there, the melodies were there, and no band. So Vern, the drummer, said, "Hey, let's call up some friends and see if we can, put together some kind of recording project for you here." And so, somehow Ron and Kurt Danielson, Ron Nine and Kurt Danielson got involved, and of course, I was recording it, and this is the problem with me recording a band, is sooner or later, if they're my friends in the studio, which they are, I'm going to think of a guitar part that might be appropriate, and then what are they going to do? They're going to look at me and they're go, "Oh, maybe you should play it." And I'm like, okay. That's hard for me to wear 2 hats when I'm producing or engineering, because one is the analytical side, one's the creative side. 2 sides of your brain. I've talked about this before.
Sure.
That's just what I got to deal with. But I ended up sort of getting drafted into the band, as if you will, and so I think I'm playing on 5 or 6 of the 8 songs on the Purple Strange album. I think there's a couple that I don't play on, or whatever I do, it's very minimal because it just didn't need me. But at that point, it turned into a real band, and we started playing shows. And now we're well into writing the next record. Actually, now I think we've got 8 songs toward the next album, and I'm fully on board with the songwriting on that. I mean, I did not originate any of the material, but I get my weird guitar parts fitting in there, and I'm happy.
Well, I know
I got my thing.
I know Ron was pretty excited about it, and he's hoping you guys finish another album.
I think we will. There's no doubt about it. The songs are like I said. The songs are there, and those guys are really creative, because Stroud will basically present words and a melody and some changes, and then Ron and Kurt will take it and they'll flesh out an arrangement. And I'll be sitting back going, now where am I going to put my guitar on this? And then I'll think of something, and everybody will look at me like, oh. And then it's kind of the band dynamic. I got to be careful because I'm the record producer, and I try not to be the record producer when I'm the guitar player. You know what I mean?
Well, The Shine, that track is my favorite song. on that album. Can you talk a little bit more about The Shine? Is that, hopefully that's a track that you participated on.
I think so. I have a hard time remembering which song it is right now because I don't think we played it at our last show. We played like 7 new songs at our last show, and I think 4 from the album, and I wish I could remember if that was one of them. I'm going to sound really stupid right now.
That's okay.
That's all right.
If there's strange little noodly parts, they might be me, and if there's anything that sounds like Greg Sage, it's probably me. Because I definitely am informed by the Wipers in my playing a little bit.
Very good.
That has to be. I have to confess that I'm a huge Wipers fan, and it comes out in my playing sometimes at certain times in the way I swang a chord and hold the whammy bar a certain way.
Sure.
There's a certain atmospheric thing that he was doing that has always appealed to me. So if you hear any parts like that, it's probably me. And if you hear the ripping psychedelic leads, that's probably wrong.
Exactly. Well, as the COVID restrictions have lifted and you can go back to playing live again, I guess what has been the fan response to the Purple Strange experience live? How's it gone?
Well, we played our first show in almost a year. I think last weekend.
Oh, cool.
Maybe it was just literally just like 10 days ago or something, and it was great. A room full of people not wearing masks. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And people rocking and just having a good time, and it was just kind of like the good old days in a way. I was pleasantly surprised, and as far as I know, from knowing people that went to the show, it doesn't seem to have been a super spreader event or anything. Everyone's still alive as far as I know. Nobody got sick. No, we had a great time, and I think we freaking killed it. So that was nice. We sort of had something to prove. It's like, okay, we haven't played in a year, and we're playing a bunch of new songs. We better kill it. So we rehearsed pretty hard. And it paid off.
So cool. So cool.
Yeah, and it's nice. You get off stage and you're like, whoa, we did it. Okay, these songs are going to work. You're trying new songs on the audience. They don't know the songs. So this is kind of a test case, really. How loud is the applause after each new song? Just 2 people clapping, you're going to have to think about it. But no, apparently it worked. So it was cool. So shows are starting to happen here.
So, fantastic. Fantastic.
Seattle's finally come out from under the bed, you might say.
Yeah. We'll put your producer cap back on here for a little bit, and we'll talk about the new band, Third Secret. Eric and I were talking the other day that we wish Kim Thale or Chris Novoselic would make some new music here, and then boom, we got Third Secret. Yeah. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's a project that Chris and so he had a band, Giants in the Trees, and I worked on both of their albums. Actually, I recorded and mixed the first record, and I mastered the second one, actually. That was, the singer was Jillian Ray, who is, she's from that area down in Southwest Washington where Chris lives. She was like a local talent that Chris took up with.
Nice.
And she ended up in his band. And that band it's kind of on ice now, but Jillian and Chris started writing songs directly together based on he has this, he's a very, very good player of fingerstyle acoustic in that kind of John Fahey kind of style. It's very intricate. It's stuff that I can't even dream of doing on the guitar. It's a style of playing that's completely alien to me. I'm a rock guy. I like feedback and noise and distortion. And he's got this intricate finger-picking thing going on, and he's stunningly good at it. And he writes these songs, and Jillian was starting to come up with these melodies. And so they started demoing these tunes, and I was helping him out with that. And meanwhile, Chris was jamming with Matt and Kim Thile and Bubba Dupree, who was also in The Earthworm for a few months, by the way. That's another story. So they were jamming up in Seattle occasionally, and Chris was kind of, they had some riffs, and Chris sort of figured out, maybe I can piece an album together out of this all this stuff we're working on, because the thing that's in common in all of it, if you've heard the Third Secret record, is it's all, Chris and Jillian are basically were basically the creative core of it.
Yeah.
And they sort of, somehow he kind of roped in the heavy hitters on some of the tunes, and those guys, Kim and Bubba and Matt were like, they were kind of stoked, like, oh, something new to work on, cool.
Yeah.
So Matt ended up playing drums on some of it, and Kim is on some of it, Bubba's on some of it. There's some tasty solos on there, and then there's some other tunes that are largely acoustic based. And the last song on the record was tracked by Matt Cameron playing drums and Chris doing fingerstyle acoustic at the same time. And there's actually bleed from the drums into the acoustic guitar mic. And then, Bubba overdubbed a solo, and we recorded the vocals on it. And, it fell to me to pull the whole thing together and mix it and master it. But so it's a project, it was a lot of material that had been like me, Chris just likes to record.
Yeah.
When he's got some songs, he just pulls together and okay, let's just record this and, figure out what we'll do with it later. And at a certain point, it just became apparent that there was enough material to pull an album together. So that became the third secret. And
so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was interesting. And, it must be said, there's Matt Cameron, who was the first drummer in the first band I ever played guitar for, which was Skin Yard.
Yes.
In 1985, before he joined Soundgarden. He's on the first Skin Yard album. And, so we go back a long way. And, obviously he's done quite well for himself. I said to him about 20 years ago, this drumming thing is going to work out for you. He was already in Soundgarden at that point,
It's the Seattle lasagna of musicianship, is it not? It's just a layer.
Yeah, the lasagna or spaghetti or whatever you want to put it. Spaghetti casserole. It is, and I mean, Kim used to be my neighbor back in the 80s. I mean, when Skin Yard used to open for Soundgarden at the local bar in 1985. So there's some water under the bridge there.
Sure. Absolutely.
But that's what I can tell you about that. It was, Chris basically was the mastermind and pulled it together, but the songwriting is definitely shared.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to touch upon Beyond Captain Orca. It's been around for a few years now. You record all the live shows, post them on Bandcamp. Can you give our listeners an insight of the origins of the band, and how often does a band perform? I guess this would be pre-COVID.
Well, yeah, I know pre-COVID has been, that's everybody uses that phrase. So Beyond Captain Orca started. So I had a band with my wife Mia and Mia Boyle and Mia Catherine Boyle. We had a band called MKB Ultra, which was sort of whimsically named because somebody saw her initials and thought, oh, Project MK Ultra, which was this you can look it up on the internet. It's this crazy, bizarre rabbit hole of it goes back to the 50s and 60s with the CIA experimenting with psychedelic drugs. It's like a hilarious story. Anyway, if you look up Project MK Ultra, anyway, her initials were MKB, and this is before we were married, and we thought, well, let's, she had a bunch of songs, and again, it was like, well, we need a band to play these songs, and, here I am playing guitar. So we got a band together and called it MKB Ultra, and made 2 albums, and at a certain point, I realized that the rhythm section for this band, once again, was, I could do something with these guys. Sound familiar, So, and I knew they were kind of jammy, and they liked improv. They're good playing structured rock material, but I knew that their heart was in the improv world. And I said, hey, you guys, why don't we do a side project? Let's just do an improv band. And where we literally, our mission will be, don't talk about it, don't plan, just simply get up and play. And with the goal, this was the goal, to cast a spell on the room. Can we do it with no songs, no singer, no rehearsal?
Oh, cool.
And these guys are good enough musicians. It's Patrick Lennon on drums and 5-track on bass that I knew it would work. And I've always been kind of into that kind of thing myself, but all the structured rock bands that I do don't really give me the latitude to explore that. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of ready. And we just started playing shows, and people would come up and go, "Did you, like, record those songs?" And we're like, "Well, actually, we just recorded them just now on stage." You know, because I always would, it got so where I always brought a Pro Tools rig, and I set it up behind the stage, and I would record our shows, which we've done at almost every show for the last 2 or 3 years that we played. We got full multi-track. And I would mix it down, maybe take out the boring parts, and then we'd put it up on Bandcamp. Nice. So at this point, Beyond Captain Orca has, 20 albums worth of material up on Bandcamp, much of it extremely hi-fi. It sounds like studio recordings, except we're in front of an audience. And no two shows are alike.
Oh, wow.
They're all completely, it's strange, really. I mean, it might be, I don't know if I'm selling it very well here, because it's very near and dear to me, because in a way, it's kind of like that's the real music to me.
Mm. Yeah.
I mean, there's the rock bands and the songwriting and everything, but this is like totally without a net. And there's an audience for it. Certain people get it, and they really appreciate it. We don't rehearse. We just kind of wing it, and it's a challenge. You gotta be up to it. It's really a challenge to not get boring.
Yeah.
Well,
it's very cool. I like the idea of it. I'm going to check
the attention. And you hold it for. It's up on Bandcamp at beyondcaptainorca.bandcamp.com.
Oh, very good.
And,
nice.
Hopefully, you can feel free to scrutinize it. We did manage to play a few shows during the lockdown. They were sort of remote. You know how it is when everyone is doing these streaming shows during the lockdown?
Right.
So basically, we're playing in a big room with nobody but our families watching us, basically. The wives in the back of the room clapping, but still recorded multi-track, and we still had a pretty good time. And so we're kind of hoping to get out playing live again here pretty soon. We'll see what happens.
So how do you come up with the ideas for the songs? Is it like we had Chris Ballou on from President of the United States a while back, and he was talking about he was in a band with Mark Sandman, and they would just like throw a name, they would say a word, and then they would instantly on the spot write a song about it. That's kind of what I'm picturing.
Well, are you asking me about Orca now, or about the other bands?
Yeah, the Orca one.
Well, there's no lyrics, so sometimes yes, we would have like Five Tone likes to do that. He'll come up with like a phrase, and play as though blank blank blank. You know what I mean? And it'll be something totally nonsensical, and we'll just look at each other and start playing and see what happens.
Oh, nice.
This reminds me. This is the funny thing. There was a band called the Thrown Ups.
Yeah.
Okay, from Seattle. This is a hard sell, actually, because the Thrown Ups are not easy listening music. But the Thrown Ups are interesting in that they were a full band with a singer who improvised everything they ever recorded with me in the studio. They recorded quite a few things with me in the studio back in the days, and all of it was improvised on the spot with lyrics. Mm. I don't know how they did this, but what they would do is they would because their singer, Ed Fotheringham, was kind of a genius at just coming up with stuff off the top of his head that sounded like a song. But what they would do is they would come up with song titles first. And they would have a list of the most ridiculous song titles you could think of.
Yeah.
There'd be a song like Elephant Crack or something like that, and they'd all look at each other and go, Elephant Crack, that's hilarious. What would that sound like? And they'd turn and look at me and say, Jeff, roll it. And they would start playing, and Ed would start, vocally riffing off the title that had been given to him, and they would somehow, it would be a song. And, and it sounded like songs. That's the funny thing. So there's a lot of ways of approaching this sort of thing. Orca has never had a singer. That's always been part of the thing. Is like, no, we're going to do this instrumentally. Sometimes we have guests. We've had musicians play with us. A second percussionist, or we had Amy Denio play on one show, and. Trying to think offhand. There's various other people have guested with us. Oh, Kevin Whitworth actually played with us at a show, and trying to think of who else actually. I'm drawing a blank on it right now. I know it's been a little while. But so that's just, that's a totally different concept of a band where I get to basically make sheets of sound. And, I'm basically ambient. I have a lot of delay going and a lot of feedback and just being textural and not being noodly.
Oh, so cool.
Very cool. I was just thinking the Thrown Ups. I knew that sounded familiar. Was that the same band that Mark Arm and Steve Turner from Mudhoney are in?
Mark Arm was the drummer.
That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah. Very cool.
Yes. Yes, they were one of the bravest bands I've ever seen, actually, in terms of just being able to pull that off at a time when I don't think anyone really understood what they were doing.
Very cool.
Kind of genius. One of my favorite bands from the old days that I don't think most people would necessarily like.
or didn't know about, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, Jack, we're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we didn't cover tonight that you would like to promote or plug?
Gosh, there probably is, but I can't think of it right now. I mean, I guess I could plug my website, endino.com, because it's got a discography on there with a list of like 600 plus records, but I haven't put anything from 2021 up yet. That's how bad I am. It only goes to the end of 2020. And I need to add, there's so many records that have come out since then that I have not put on the discography. So, shame on me, really, for being a terrible self-promoter. But, I'm on Instagram at Jack Endino Seattle, and I'm on Facebook at Jack Endino public page. And, there's probably a bunch of fake Jack Endinos floating around. But I can't do anything about that.
Oh, very good. Very good.
So, yeah, there you go. That's where I'm at right now,
Well, it sounds like you're being very productive.
Yeah. I'm excited about your newest solo album. I'm going to pick that one up.
Yeah, crank it up. It's loud rock.
Yeah.
It's what you would expect,
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
So this is how things are going to work out here. We got about 3 to 4 weeks worth of episodes released before you, so we're looking at about a month, about 30 days. Okay. When it's all edited, Jeff will get it all polished up, and we'll send it to you immediately. Send it to wherever, share it wherever you can. We thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been a great interview.
Well, a pleasure, sir. Thanks. Glad to be of service.
All right. Okay. Well, take care of yourself, and I'll be in touch tomorrow. Sound good?
All right, man. See you guys. Take it easy. Have a nice night.
Take your chances. Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out both their eyes. They roll the dice. Take your chances.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.